Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and today I want to have a bit of a discussion. You see, we're all eagerly awaiting a rework for the Warriors of Chaos, not only to see some new units and characters, but, just to make them playable. They're a faction which has suffered over the years, and that's purely because they were the first ever DLC for the Total War Warhammer series, so everything's been improved over the years, but the Warriors of Chaos, here we are 5 years later, and yeah, they still need a bit of help. Now in Warhammer 3, we know that they're able to colonize, though if you look at it through maybe modding tools and so on, you can tell that nothing's really changed with the faction, it's just that they're able to take over settlements, but everything still works and acts more or less the same way. So a rework needs to come into effect. Now, today I don't want to talk about a rework, but rather how it could be implemented in a very different way. I'm talking about essentially Race Pack 2.0. So the Warriors of Chaos were released as pretty much a Warriors of Chaos Undivided. We got most of the roster in all honesty, and that's because, well, they just went with whatever units they could bring, and 3 different legendary lords, Archaon the Everchosen, Korlek Sun Eater, and Sigvald the Magnificent. 3 legendary characters which are quite cool and have their own plot and all that. But obviously, more needs to come into effect. The roster is actually a bit more full now, eventually when a rework comes into effect and we just get the units that were added in through the Monogods, so, the Marauders of Sinesh, the Hellstriders, and obviously the Khornate Warriors and the Khornate Juggernauts, because those are part of the Warriors of Chaos roster. But there's a bit of an issue there. You see, even if those units get added in, the main thing is that the Warriors of Chaos look like the Warriors of Undivided, and yeah, not a lot of people play Undivided, not a lot of people are keen on Undivided, they want dedicated factions. So what I'm actually thinking about here is, what if a DLC came into effect which was a secondary race pack? And what I mean is a second race pack for the Warriors of Chaos, one which would then come in and update the Warriors of Chaos, but only the Warriors of Chaos. It would be treated as a race pack in its own right. There's a bit of fan art that floats about every now and then, which is on screen right now, and this is what everyone wants eventually, right? A dedicated Khornate Warriors of Chaos faction, a dedicated Slanesh faction, a dedicated Tzeentchian faction, and a dedicated Nurgle faction, with the Warriors of Chaos looking like they worship their specific god. No recolors, so not a Warrior of Chaos painted pink, purple, red, or green, but rather looking like they are dedicated solely to their devoted deity. So what if we had a DLC that did just that? 5 factions, 5 legendary lords, all of them being Warriors of Chaos. Hear me out here. If a dedicated Warriors of Chaos DLC does come out with a rework and all that, I don't think it would be best if it got introduced with just one character as a standard Lord pack, Warriors of Chaos versus Empire and all that. I've been thinking about this lately because the issue is, you'll get a dedicated character, but maybe it might not be the character that everyone wants. Maybe it might not be the faction everyone wants. If we get, say, Valk, then the Nurgle fans won't have a Nurgle faction to play with. Or say if we get Azazel, then the Tzeentchian factions won't have anything to play with. It's something that needs to be done right, especially since there's so much emphasis on the unique stuff when it comes to the Warriors of Chaos, or just Chaos in general. Now, before anything, I know some people are going to say, well, we already have some Undivided and Slaneshi characters as legendary lords, so there doesn't really need to be them included too, but you have to keep in mind that if they're going to kind of overhaul everything to do with the Warriors of Chaos, Creative Assembly have to take into account that not everyone owns the Warriors of Chaos DLC, and there is no incentive to buy it now. A lot of people say, yeah, don't buy it until it gets reworked and all that. So yeah, there needs to be characters introduced for all the different types of Warriors of Chaos. Just as an example, for Legendary Lords, we could have Crom the Conqueror for Undivided, because Crom is kind of cool. For Slanesh, we could have Azazel to introduce Demon Princes. This would be a way to have Demon Princes in the DLC, but more on that later. Then we could have Village the Cursing for Tzeentch. I feel like he would be kind of cool. Festus for Nurgle would be quite interesting, and then Valkyr for Khorne. So that's 5 different characters, which introduces a lot of playtime, and more than likely would not have to do the Souls race, so you'd be in the campaign map, but you could just have a little bit of fun with that. And obviously then you'd have the accompanying FLC rework and the Warriors of Chaos rework. Maybe they could fit in Archaon, Korlek, and Sigvald, or maybe they'll just be available through the Immortal Empires, but that gives you, what, 8 characters to play with? That's kind of cool. Obviously, there's some missing units, like, say, for example, the Slaughter Brute, the Mutilative Vortex Beast, you know, the Chaos War Shrine. Please, Creative Assembly, 5 years, I've been waiting for this. Please, Chaos War Shrine. So we would get some new units, but there wouldn't be that many. Instead, what we would get is just a change to all the factions. Like I said, dividing the stuff around. It will still be the same units, but they'll have some different uses. Some of them would have different weapons. So say, for example, we'd have Chaos Warriors of Sinesh with Hell Scourges because, well, it kind of fits with the theme, doesn't it? Chaos Warriors of Nurgle mounted upon Plague Toads because, I don't know, that just seems kind of fun to me. Well, also on Rotflies, but I kind of like the Plague Toads version more. It would be reusing a lot of assets, yes, but the main thing is that the Chaos Warriors of Nurgle would be fat again. You know, they would be represented as they are in lore. The Chaos Warriors of Sinesh would be skinny. The Chaos Warriors of Khorne would reuse the assets that are obviously presented in Warhammer 3 base game through the Khornate faction. And you see what I mean? We'd start getting more uniqueness, individuality. The only one who really wouldn't benefit from this, more so benefiting from the new units, would be Crom the Conqueror, because, well, he's already got the baseline undivided Chaos Warriors. Now, logically, then the undivided factions would have access to all the stuff that the Mono Gods would have, but you'd get 4 different playstyles and then 1 mega playstyle, kind of like the demons. So I'm kind of suggesting separating them into their own thing, but keeping them in the same umbrella as Warriors of Chaos. So they have access to everything, just they wouldn't have their god-specific units, and it would make things a lot more fun. I think that would make the player base a bit more interested in the Warriors of Chaos, because then they can play around. Today I'm going to play with the Sineshi faction. Today I'm going to play with the Tzeentchian faction, you know? It just gives you a little bit more, while still keeping the same ideology rather than all separate like the monogods. Yes, you'd have some benefits, so Sinesh would be faster, Khorne would be better at melee combat, Nurgle would be tankier, but I'm not saying a complete overhaul like making the Sinesh faction seduce units and making the Tzeentchian faction do the Changer of the Ways, because they're not demons, they are mortal. They would have a little bit of power, they would be better at spellcasting, but they wouldn't be able to switch around settlements and all that different stuff. So there, this is just a basic concept, and I'll probably get into much more detail when I do a basic rework video. It's just something that's been in my head for a while, because as I've been doing the Lord versus Lord speculation, it's kind of just made me think maybe this might not work because it's not going to appeal to everyone. Whereas this pretty much just finishes the Warriors of Chaos, and then anything in the future that does happen, well, that could be tied to monogods getting their specific DLC, or pretty much anything else, or just adding in more characters in the form of FLC, maybe even just character packs. That's something that I've been looking for a while. Obviously, we have to take into account that a FLC would have to come alongside this, even though it's going to be a massive rework as its own. And I'd say here would be the perfect time just to have in Be'lakor for Chaos Undivided as the Demons Undivided, and be done with it, you know? Because, let's be honest, a lot of us kind of wanted Be'lakor in Warhammer 3 base game. It's kind of weird that we didn't have him with his own faction, considering that he has a unique model. But yeah, better to have him come with an FLC alongside Warriors of Chaos, and then just have another Demons faction there. And that's all sorted, I think. I think this would probably work out very well. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and we'll start a bit of a discussion. I'm curious to see what you guys think. It's mostly, I'm trying to find solutions, because I think this just makes every Chaos fan happy, which is a bit annoying because I know a lot of people would be like, well, it's too much chaos, but I mean, it's Warhammer 3, we're expecting a lot of chaos, and I think an extra Lord Pack 2.0, sorry, Race Pack 2.0 might solve a lot of issues.